appoint members to my register of interests as a director of a not-for-profit company, Whistleblowers UK, which exists to campaign for legislative reform in the area of whistleblowing and also support people who are involved in whistleblowing and need that support. And I say that in anticipation of turning to the amendments in my own name, 35, 53 and 258, because these amendments concern the responsibility that I would wish to confer on the Chief Inspector for creating a secure, independent whistleblowing function within Scottish education. These are not merely procedural amendments, they are moral propositions. They are rooted in justice, integrity and the protection of the public interest. The ability to raise concerns safely, independently and without fear of retaliation is fundamental to any healthy public service, in fact any healthy organisation of any type. But in too many parts of our education system, that culture of openness is absent. At present, Education Scotland offers no formal independent route by which professionals can report concerns about misconduct, malpractice or systemic failure. And those avenues that do exist are typically internal, often obscure and sometimes tainted by conflicts of interest. This is a glaring failure of governance, and I believe it puts our children at risk. My amendments would place the responsibility for a secure, independent and transparent whistleblowing function into the hands of the Chief Inspector. This is the only sensible place, in my view, for it to reside, because the Chief Inspector is or must be an independent actor, free from the entanglements of local authority management or indeed government interference, as I spoke of earlier. They must be the safe harbour for professionals whose conscience will not allow them to remain silent. Now, Presiding Officer, whistleblowing, this is actually Whistleblowing Awareness Week, so it's very appropriate that, that I should have the opportunity afforded me by this amendment to say that whistleblowing, and I hope we'll all agree with this, is not a fringe issue. It is central to safeguarding professional ethics and public trust. And we've already seen, most starkly in the El Jamel case in NHS Tayside, what happens when fear, silence and bureaucratic inertia are allowed to take root, and we must not allow the same rot to fester in Scottish education. So, of course.
Martin Whitfield.
I'm very grateful to Stephen Kerr for taking the intervention, and he will know that I fully support the principles behind whistleblowing and have done for a long period of time. But rather than reiterate what was what I discussed with the member at stage 2, which I would in essence ask people to draw, I still have concerns with the amendment that he's proposed today, because education is not like the NHS. It is a different environment with a different group that make up the jigsaw of it. And much as I agree that a whistleblowing entity is necessary, I'm not sure that, with the greatest respect, I'm not sure the process in this amendment is it.
Stephen Kerr.
I appreciate Martin Whitfield's intervention. I understand his concerns. We've discussed this not only formally but informally as well. But I think the point I'm trying to raise in the Stage 3 amendment proceedings is the issue that whistleblowing needs to be taken far more seriously. Now, I'm proposing amendments which I believe would meet an immediate need, and that is to tackle a certain culture that I think we would, in all honesty, in all candour, accept exists in Scottish education. We need teachers and school leaders to feel completely free to voice their concerns as they see them. And at the minute, I don't think that culture exists. I speak to enough school leaders, head teachers and teachers, as I'm sure he does, to know that this is a genuine concern. Amendment 35 would establish a formal process that would be accessible, widely publicised and governed by best practice in public interest disclosure. And it will be wholly distinct from any employer's internal grievance procedures. We're not talking about that. And that separation is vital, because in too many cases, the employer can be the source of the problem. This would affirm the right of teachers, support staff, administrators, even pupils in some contexts, to raise their voices when something is going wrong as they see it. They say to our education workforce, your integrity is valued, your concerns will be heard, your career will not be sacrificed for doing the right thing. Amendment 53 strengthens this framework by requiring the Chief Inspector to publish an annual report to Parliament, detailing the number and type of concerns raised, investigations conducted and recommendations made. That transparency is essential to accountability, and it gives Parliament and the public the means to scrutinise whether the system is working. A functioning whistleblowing framework will do 4 things, vital things. It will protect learners by ensuring safeguarding concerns are acted upon. It will support ethical leadership. It will retain principled professionals. And it will promote early institutional learning before problems escalate into scandal. And it will also address an uncomfortable, urgent fact that many of those most at risk when whistleblowing protections are absent are women. The Scottish education workforce is majority female, and it is female teachers who are disproportionately subject to disrespect, to aggression and to violence in the classroom, often without institutional protection or recourse. We know from our engagements, I'm sure we all do, with teachers in some parts of Scotland, in certain schools, that when incidents have occurred, teachers have been actively discouraged from reporting. They've been actively discouraged from reporting. They've been asked to consider their professional reputation and the reputation of the school and so forth. That's not acceptable. So these amendments are modelled in part on the independent, and this is the point that Martin Whitfield raised earlier. These are in part modelled on the independent national whistleblowing officer created for the NHS in Scotland. And that role has shown it is entirely feasible to have a small independent office that ensures complaints are handled fairly, safely and outside the management chain. There is no good reason why the education workforce should be afforded any less protection than NHS staff. Let us be absolutely clear. Whistleblowing saves systems from failure. It is a means of protecting the public interest and of ensuring that the best interests of pupils, parents and the wider public are safeguarded at all times. In education, this is particularly vital because schools are closed environments and power is hierarchical. Cultures can become toxic. And when issues arise, whether mismanagement, safeguarding failures, curriculum malpractice or the bullying of staff or pupils, the instinct too often is to deny, deflect or retaliate. Presiding Officer, if we are serious about creating a world-class education system, one grounded in safety, ethics and trust, then we must begin by protecting those who protect the truth. That is what these amendments do. Let's also reflect on the wider benefits that a well-functioning whistleblowing framework can bring. First, it improves learner safety. When staff feel safe to raise safeguarding concerns, the entire system becomes more responsive. Children are better protected. Risks are identified earlier. Lessons are learned more quickly. And second, it strengthens leadership. When leaders know that staff have recourse to independent oversight, they are more likely to lead ethically, transparently and responsibly. The very existence of whistleblowing protection adds a preventative force against abuse of power. Third, it improves staff retention. Talented professionals who are committed to doing the right thing will remain in the sector if they believe that ethical conduct is supported, not punished. It creates a culture where good people want to stay. Fourthly, it supports organisational learning. Whistleblowing is often the first signal that something in the system is going wrong. If that signal is silenced, the institution continues to drift. If it is heard and acted upon, the institution can change before failure becomes inevitable. An early warning leads to early action. And most importantly, it upholds the principle that public institutions must serve the public good. Education is not a private matter, it is a public service. The rights and well-being of learners, the trust of families and the integrity of national policy are all bound up with how we handle internal dissent. We must build a culture that says telling the truth matters, standing up for children matters, calling out failure is a form of care. Now, I genuinely believe that the Cabinet Secretary is someone who understands what I hope she understands, what these amendments are intended to do, because there is a cultural problem in the education sector. I urge members to support these amendments, not simply as policy, but as a statement of our values, that truth matters, that courage is to be honoured, and that Scottish education must be accountable from the inside out.